Recorded Books presents A Very Nervous Person's Guide to Horror Movies by Mathias Clasen. Narrated by Jonathan Todd Ross. Preface. Thank you for picking up this book. I assume that you are a very nervous person with an interest in horror movies. Me, I'm a horror researcher, and a fairly nervous person, at least when it comes to horror movies. I will tell you what a horror researcher does in a moment, but first, I will say a little about nervousness. Nervousness gets a bad rap, but if our species were not constitutionally nervous, an anxious, hairless ape, we would not be here today. Homo sapiens has fought its way through millennia of life-or-death struggle. Our ancestors traversed jungles teeming with hungry cats and sneaky serpents. They crossed deserts under the unforgiving glare of a prehistoric sun. And they sailed across restless oceans inhabited by huge, barely glimpsed beasts. Without some vigilance, some nervousness, our species would not have made it. Of course, there is such a thing as too much nervousness. Some people are so nervously inclined that their anxiety gets in the way of their pursuit of happiness. But moderate anxiety is not necessarily a bad thing. As I am writing this in the summer of 2020, it seems that we are all chronically nervous. Anxiety is not just simmering, it is boiling. The novel coronavirus, SARS-CoV-2, is cutting a swath of destruction across the planet. If that were not enough, we are facing increasing political polarization and civic unrest, irreversible climate change, a biodiversity crisis, and other such items from Pandora's big box of very bad stuff. The future seems to be harder to predict than ever before, and we humans detest the unknown. Fear of the unknown is, as one psychologist puts it, the one fear to rule them all. With all this anxiety and nervousness going around, why would you want to listen to a book about, let alone watch, horror movies? Well, many people like to play with fear. Our species' fearfulness is not only key to our success in terms of survival, it is also the engine in a range of leisure activities, from extreme sports over scary entertainment to frightening pretend play. Endlessly innovative, we humans have found a way to wring pleasure from our constitutional anxiety. I will be arguing in this book that we can get more than mere pleasure and diversion from horror movies. Indeed, horror fiction may be a primary means through which we confront fear and anxiety. Recent research actually suggests that people who regularly watch horror movies are coping better with the COVID-19 pandemic than those who stay away from horror movies. It looks like habitual horror watchers are doing a better job of keeping negative emotions on a leash, maybe because they have more practice regulating their own fear and anxiety to keep from being overwhelmed by scary movies. I will return to that research later in the book. As a horror researcher, I am interested in what horror is and what it does. My primary training is in literary and film study, and I work in an English department at Aarhus University, a large research university in Denmark. Most of my career has been dedicated to theoretical and interpretive work. But in recent years, I've been branching out into more empirical work, collecting data, working with human subjects, measuring behavior and physiology, that sort of thing. All in an attempt to get deeper into the psychological machine room of the horror genre. I am lucky to have some brilliant colleagues who have been collaborating with me, and I recently received a large research grant from the Independent Research Fund Denmark to establish the Recreational Fear Lab. You can visit our homepage at www.fear.au
Sample complete. Ready to continue?